right, so what we're going to do now is calculate the 40th percentile from the array we had above. Now, to determine the position number, we're going to use 22 because we have 22 samples in our array, and over plus 1 over 100 times 40 to represent the 40th percentile. And so when we do that, we get an answer of 9.2. So our solution is going to be in the 9.2 position. And so what we need to do now is figure out the value of the 40th percentile. And so the value of the 40th percentile will be the value of the 9th number in our array plus 0.2, which is our decimal here, times the value of our 10th minus the value of the 9th value in our array. So when you go up to our numbers that have been arranged in order, the 9th value is 197 and the 10th value is 201. So this is equal to then 197, which I said was the 9th value in our array, plus 0.2 times, and 201 was our 10th value, minus our 197, which is equal to then 197.8. And the reason for using this method is because we're looking at a percentile, means that our 40th percentile should be closer to the 197 than our 201. So instead of just splitting the difference, even though that's a method that some people use. And really, I'm not all that concerned about if you're using a different method later on. Right now, this is the method we're going to use for this course, and it makes sense. So what I'd like you to do now is take a look at the interquartile range. Now, the interquartile range is the difference between Q1 and Q3. And this contains the middle 50% of the data because it goes from the 25th percentile up to the 75th percentile. And so then the data that's not included in the interquartile range would be the top 25% and the bottom 25%. So the interquartile range from example 1, well, if we go back and look at our first quartile was 172, and our third quartile was 323.5. So our interquartile range then is going to be then will be equal to, now again, Q3 is 323.5, Q1 is 172, and so our interquartile range is going to be Q3 minus Q1, which is 323.5 subtract 172, which is equal to 151.5. Now, what we're going to do is take a look at a function using Excel, and our median, as before, we can calculate this one of three ways now. So the first way, so our median will be our data in the table is highlighted, and we get an answer of 121.5, which matches what we did before. Another way you can do this using another function in Excel is quartiles. And we're going to use quartile and EXC, which stands for excluded, which we're not going to worry too much about what that means for the purposes of this course. And our array, again, is the values in our table. And our for quart, you're going to include what number quartile it is. The median is the second quartile. And so we put in 2 and type enter, and we get 121.5 again. And if we're going to use percentiles, there is a function for percentiles, and we're going to use percentile EXC. So I highlight the data in my table, press comma, and I have to type 50 and percent, and then type enter. And again, I get 221.5. Now, for calculating the first quartile, there's a couple ways that we can do this. And first one is using the quartile function. Again, highlight the array. And the first quartile, we have to put in 1. And so we get an answer of 172, which matches what we calculated before. We could also use the percentile function and click on our array and put in 25%. It also works if you use 0.25, and we get 172 again. The third quartile, we can use 2 functions again for this one. So the quartile function, and this time, since we are talking about the third quartile, we have to put in 3. And so we end up with 323.5, which matches what we did when we did our calculation using the formula. We could also use percentile. And we put in for K 75%, or 0.75, and we get 323.5. Now, anytime you're calculating the percentile that is not 25, 50, or 75%, we have to use a percentile function. And so now we put in our array, and our 40th percentile will be 197.8, which matches the value that we had before. So now if we want to calculate the interquartile range, I'll abbreviate that IQR, the interquartile range. The easiest way we can do that is equals the third quartile minus the first quartile. So we get an interquartile range of 151.5. And again, that matches what we did when we did the calculation using the formula.